Contracts actually work in being able to predict the future. So why can't we build our future around contracts to build wealth? You absolutely can. In fact, it's all here. Who else has fantasized about time traveling and profiting from going back in time? I live there. I'm there all the time. And when I think about it, I know someone that's done this. You do too. Let's go back into pop culture. Marty McFly with the time machine and all that kind of stuff. Okay, if you're a nerd like me and you love those 80s films, remember when Biff was in the future in part 2? And he's the old man and he just happens to jump in the time machine, goes back in time. He drops off a copy of a sports almanac from the future to his past self. Biff, young Biff, in 1985, now has a guidebook as to what's going to happen in the next 60 years. So what does young Biff do? He profits off of it. Okay, this guy doesn't need to do any research. He doesn't involve any experts. He doesn't need to figure out, look at charts, study. He just knows what's going to happen. All he needs to do now is take action. So young Biff goes and makes bets. Not really a bet technically because he knows what's going to happen. He just puts his money and amplifies it many times over using the predictability of that almanac. And when I was thinking about this, there's a life lesson here. There's a financial lesson here. This guy, Biff, butthead Biff, didn't do what we do, which is go to work, earn money, pay taxes, pay for life, save what's left, and then try and turn that into a big number for your future. He didn't have to do any of that kind of stuff. He didn't live in the world that you and I live in. What he did instead was said, hang on a second, I've got perfect information. I know what's going to happen. How can I leverage that to my advantage and use it to build an empire, use it to build significant wealth? So he did. He took action based on what he knew. And there's a pop culture lesson here about wealth. Like Biff has become my financial mentor. Why? Because he doesn't do things the way that everyone else does. He's not in that system. He decided he's going to look at things differently and figure out how to build wealth differently. All right, now, so granted, this guy's got an opportunity to go back in time and all that, and we don't have that option. As much as I'd love to time travel, unless you know a way to do that isn't an option. But the lesson is important. We can actually do what Biff did, but the sequence in which we have to execute is different. Rather than coming from the future to the past and looking at what's going to happen, we can look at what's going to happen today, put that into a contract, and we know that's going to happen in the future. You're using contracts everywhere else in life, aren't you? If you have a car lease, did you not sign a contract that says you're going to pay this for this many days, for this many months, or whatever it is, in exchange for the car? Yeah, and you know that 3 years from now, you'll still have that car. Or if you don't, the person who you have a contract with is going to get what they're owed the same way. Contract makes it happen. You got a mortgage, same problem. In fact, this is what I do. I create almost financial almanacs from now that predict the future. You could do this. We can know today what to expect 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now if we want to. Whatever we want. Nothing to do with paying taxes and investing what's left over and hoping that it works out. None of that stuff. Biff was right. We can decide today what we're going to do, what we want in the future. And we can contract that, make that into our own little almanac and get that outcome in the future. We could have our own empire just doing it this way. I know this happened in fiction and it was in the movies, but it works. I'm living proof. It actually works. And I do this for myself. I do this for clients. We create our own financial almanacs. In fact, it's all here. This is the book that I wrote that talks about this. I call it Money Mansions. Same concept. It's based on predicting the future accurately.